I don't know about everybody else, but I can't stop thinking about that neighborhood up there by the water tank. And I would like to have some kind of solution tonight, temporary solution to this problem, whether we have to close that trail and secure that property as best we can. Maybe make a budget modification for 2 more officers to hang out there dusk till dawn for 2 weeks. I think we need to do something tonight about this problem. I know we have these problems all over town. This seems extreme to me. I think we need to talk about it and come up with a solution tonight. And I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks.
So is that a motion to add that to the agenda?
I would, it's new, items for new discussion. Do we need to make a motion to add that to the agenda?
Yeah.
I make a motion to add to the agenda that we talk about Birch Street.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Eric.
I too have been, most of the rest of the meeting tonight has been kind of a blur to me. I personally know some of these people. That's my hill up there too, and I had no idea this was going on up on Mount View. I had no idea till tonight. And I think we need to, I wrote a little note here, it says we cannot wait any longer to do something. And I wrote another note that says, you know, is it possible, and this is for Chief and Jeff, to send a cop by there, you know, hourly, 2 hours, 5 hours, I don't know, make more visits to start with.
I certainly,
Those people certainly don't feel safe.
I certainly think that's something that we can do, at least set a number of stops per shift or something like that.
I know we're short of police too, so I know it's tough. But,
I mean, we have reservists out there, don't we, Chief Moody?
We have reserve police officers that are not level 1 reserves, which means they cannot operate on their own.
One of the other recommendations we heard tonight from the citizens was asking us to close the trail. Could someone speak to what our options are there and what the implications of that might be, so we could consider that if it is feasible?
Sure. We, when we took our visit on the ground yesterday, that's definitely something that we discussed and are working through the logistics of doing something like that and how it would affect the rest of the community. Anecdotally, we've heard stories of, you know, people taking the trail to go to the library, those kind of things, and we don't want to dissuade people, obviously, from doing that and using the trail, but we're mitigating factors for people that probably or would, it makes it difficult for the neighborhood using that trail. So there's pluses and minuses, and finding a balance point is what we have been doing most of the day today, and I'm sure tomorrow. So being able to answer that question tonight in a public forum is not something I'm necessarily comfortable with.
yeah. But closing the, can I go? Closing the trail, is that really gonna, what I'm hearing then is these people are walking up the trail to go to this encampment. I'm hearing tonight that they're going up and down the street up on top. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, I think we have clear direction from the council to address this problem specifically, and how we go about doing that is something that the chief and I can discuss along with other staff members on how to actually accomplish the direction the council wants us to go.
And could I just ask as a follow-up, once decisions are made about what actionable items may take place, if you would please make a special point to get that out to the council members, and I would expect we would communicate that with the folks in that area, as you have been doing along the way. I understand this is an ongoing concern, it sounds like, and so making sure that we're in front of the communications on this and that we can offer whatever support we are able to as council and as staff to that neighborhood is something that is a priority for me.
Once we come up with a plan of action that fits the circumstances and the legal requirements, we will certainly share that with council. And we have a letter developed not specifically for this issue, but for people that come address their concerns for council, that we will be sending to the people on Birch Street, and I'm sure we'll contact them as well.
A question probably for Chief. It seemed like the comments said it had changed significantly recently. Do we know of any events or any whatever that caused that?
I would hate to just anecdotally give you that it's caused by that encampment. But when I talked to people that were living up in that little encampment area, the one I talked to said there wasn't as many people living up there just 3 months ago as there is currently. And when I talked to, in fact, some of the folks that were here tonight, I talked to them earlier this week and last week. It's not only that group of people. It's similar to other areas in this city where we say it's the homeless people. Sometimes it's an attractive nuisance is what we call it. So if there's a group of people hanging out in that area, some of them may in fact be homeless, but does that then cause others to hang out in that area? This is an area that's, if you've never been there, it's over and down, and it's not really a main street where it's easily visible. And so some of these houses are on that end of that street. And when I talked to them, it was a lot of comings and goings up and down the hill. It wasn't just strictly coming up the hill, and it wasn't just strictly going down the hill. And it was party goers in the water towers as well as that down in the encampment. That being said, they also mentioned to me that we don't like to call you so much because it's a problem if we keep calling you. And we reiterated to them, that's the way I know something's happening up here is when you call us. And they understand the frustrations with calling and thinking, look, it's not that big a deal, or it is, it isn't. And I appreciate them tonight saying that we were there to help them when we needed to. But I would encourage again, if we don't call, when these little things happen, they become the bigger things. But like I said, the city manager and Councilman Niska walked it with me, and they can describe what they saw out there. We sent Jerry's crew from community service to go out there and try and do some cleanup and mitigation of it. There are options before you of things to do. And I'm going to address the officer part of this. I'm 3 officers down at the moment. Frankly, I don't have the officers to put up there 24/7. Even if I offered them overtime, they wouldn't take it. They're working overtime now. And frankly, there's a point where the burnout levels in, and there's, I can tell them, look, I can offer you 12 hours overtime to go sit over there in a car and make sure nobody comes up and down the street. But that's really not a feasible option. That may stop it for tonight. But again, legally, they can't just stop people walking up and down a public street.
I just think that if there was an officer sitting up there dusk till dawn, they might find a new place to go.
That is also an answer, yes.
Is there a way that you could partner with some county officers? Is that possible? Is that legal?
It's always possible, absolutely. I haven't talked to the sheriff expressly about this, but I can tell you he's in a similar situation.
Yeah. Well,
Councilmember Schmidt?
I'm glad we're having this discussion, to be honest, and I'll be 100% honest too, that I share the same emotion and sentiments that Councilmember Onisco does, and all the people who sit in the audience when he came to talk to us. I appreciate them coming to talk to us. I think the thing for the council to learn and to understand and to come to grips with, shuffling homeless people around the city doesn't solve the issue, right? Sending a cop up and asking law enforcement presence doesn't solve the issue. And trust me, I wish it could be as simple as pay an officer overtime to sit there and deter, right? The long-term answer is that we need to understand why they're there, why we have the issue that we have, and then build the trust with that group. Because again, you can't just go grab people and force them into treatment, force them into housing. That is partially also behind some of the issues that we're seeing with the Martin v. Boise decision and all these other legislative sort of ties that we have to being able to do things in the community. It's because that's not necessarily the right approach. The right approach, we need to understand first what we're dealing with, what services we can connect them with, and again, but that starts with a foundation of trust with that community as well. Again, I struggle with move them around, kick them out, pick them up, pack them up, move them here and there. It's somebody else's problem. You're moving it back and forth, and you're just playing a game. And just look at downtown Olympia.
Well, I
You move-
certainly wasn't suggesting that.
Oh, no, it's tough because it's, well, what do you do now, right? What do you do today? I'm right there with you. What do we do today? And I'm beating my head against the wall.
I don't think we're dealing with the homeless issue. I think we're dealing with thugs. People who try to bust in somebody's house from their home. I think this is bigger than just a little homeless camp. This is what they said. This is a,
And understand that a lot of the problems that they're facing are dealing with people who are in need of assistance for treatment purposes. Generally, the comments they've made to us, or the people we've contacted up there, are not too strong on robbers running into there to terrorize somebody. There's somebody under the influence of something that has caused them to have that reaction. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to categorize it into what, but I'm telling you that a good portion of the crimes that they're talking about are people who are in need of some type of addiction service and have some type of substance abuse issue going on. The behavior that they describe and the things that they describe are 100% into that category.
The challenge with that is the stigma around building or providing, using public funds to provide those services, right? We've had this conversation kind of as a group, you know. We can't have people who are under the influence, living in this community. We need to have a clean and sober, or whatever that is. We create those barriers, but then we end up dealing with these problems where we've now created I've said it before, we've pitted groups of homeless people against each other for housing because they are suffering from addiction or mental health or other legal issues potentially. And now those services that are going to be built and created aren't going to be able to serve them. And, you know, again, I want to make sure with whatever we do, with whatever funds we spend in the city, that we're actually focusing it on the people that we're dealing with in the city.
So these are some of the things that we've discussed at length in the public health groups and opiate stakeholders group and other things. I do know that that group has made a significant effort to provide a more robust detail of services that are available and opportunities to navigate that. So I would encourage perhaps reach out to Abe Gardner, someone at Mason County Public Health, and perhaps they may have some services and some options in place that we could add to whatever decisions are made at the city level, because being the only incorporated city, we have a very unique circumstance in and of itself, and an understanding that this is not necessarily something that is, while it's happening within city property, affects the larger community. So if I could make that ask to reach out to public health and see if there's any partnership or available resources there, I would appreciate that.
Sure.
Like any of the issues we're facing, this is a multi-pronged problem. It is not just the addiction problem, it's not just the mental health problem. It does have a criminal element problem to it. It's all, there's not gonna be one answer to walk in there and fix it all. I wish, trust me, if there was, I would be on it in a heartbeat. If you told me I could have 50 cops tomorrow and solve this problem, I would do it. But I don't think that's the reality. There is the criminal part of it, there is the lack of jail space that contributes to that and all those things. There is the mental health issues we're dealing with and the addiction issues, so I think they're all in combination. And so there are people out there that just need to go to jail. And again, there are people who we need to figure out how to house them, how to treat them, all of those things.
I have a question. if this was a stick house and there was constant criminal activity out of that house, we have some rules that we can deal with that, even though it takes a while.
Well,
Do those same rules apply to homeless or a camp on public property?
I can give you an example, Stevens Street. How long has those neighbors come in here and had those discussions with us? This is some of the discussions we were having. Frankly, the neighbors, some of them are here because our officers have talked to them and said, here's what we can do, here's what we can't do. And they encouraged them to come and talk. I'll be frank with you, our officers said, go talk to the council. Maybe we can have this conversation. It wasn't something that, because when I brought it up to the officers, they said, we told them to. And I said, that's great, that's what it's for. But those are the things that the council will have to make guiding decisions on in the future regarding policies, city ordinances. I mentioned attractive nuisance. That's a term I brought from a prior life where that's what we used for houses and businesses. If we had this many calls of this type of nature and we found out that your residence or business was that attractive nuisance causing those, then there could be penalties for that. Again, these are tough decisions that the council will have to make on some priority level of where to guide us.
But what makes those a lot easier if the owner is not the person in the house, correct?
No,
The owner can kick them out, can
absolutely.
he? Okay.
But
And that's what I'm asking is do we have the same right? We're owner of that property.
That's not work. That's work order.
Can we kick them off for, I'm saying for reason other than just camping out?
I'm gonna let Kathleen handle that one.
Okay.
Sure, I can jump in briefly. So the difference between the private home situation that you're describing and public property is essentially that Martin v. Boise decision that keeps coming up. That case dealt expressly with public property, so encampments that are on public parks or sidewalks or other places where the public can congregate. And it held that if you don't have suitable housing spaces available for homeless individuals, then it can be a violation of their constitutional rights to penalize them simply existing on public property. You don't have that same consideration when you're dealing with private property. And the other reason that it's easier to deal with these issues on private property is because our code makes it a violation of our development code to have blighted properties or nuisances that exist on private property. We have some of those same protections for public property, but we have more constitutional protections too.
And that protection applies whether it is, you can say that there's significant criminal activity there or not.
Well, the criminal activity can be addressed separately as a crime. I think the point behind the Martin v. Boise decision is that being homeless can't be criminalized. So the mere status of being homeless can't be criminalized. If homeless people are committing separate crimes, certainly theft, littering, whatever, those can be dealt with as crimes, just like you would punish the same conduct from a non-homeless individual. But when the conduct squarely concerns the status of being homeless, that's when you run into the constitutional problems.
And again, I'm sorry, and again, I don't have a problem if this was a homeless camp, somebody just finding a place to sleep. That's not what this is. These people are dangerous if they're busting in doors where people are home and their 11-year-old daughters are in the front yard. This is a problem, and we should probably figure out something soon. I mean, not wait a week or two or a month until somebody gets hurt. Sounds like it's escalating to me.
Kind of another technical question, sorry, quiz the lawyer time. So the water, are they within the confines of whatever would be considered the water tower? So they're not within the critical infrastructure, city critical infrastructure, or anything like that?
No,
Close.
the water tower is fenced off with barbed wire and
They're
those
not
kind of
within
things. They're not, we saw minimal evidence that they were within that. There's no tents or anything like that.
And I would assume legally, though, if they were within that, we have the legal right to remove them from that critical area because of the infrastructure.
Yeah, that's not the same as a public park or a sidewalk where the public is invited to gather. That's public property, but it's designated for a utility purpose and the public is intentionally kept out.
Understood. And second part, if I may, the unsafe conditions. So if the conditions that are created as a result of the encampment are deemed unsafe to the general public, reasonably unsafe to the general public, I'm not talking about necessarily criminal activities, I'm talking about whatever structures that get erected and people may be walking by if it were to fall and collapse, or and then potentially injure just an innocent person walking through the area. Do we have the legal right to remove that structure from the premises?
Generally, yes, I think you have to be a bit careful, because you can run into the Fourth Amendment with search and seizure if you go removing property. But yes, you have a right to abate public nuisances. So if you have a situation that is, causing an active danger that goes beyond just the fact that there are homeless people camping, then yeah, you can address that as a nuisance.
Thank you.
Is that watershed property or regular city property?
It's a water asset.
Does that make a difference?
Okay. Well, I've heard from our city manager and police chief that they will be working on this and get something to the council and to the residents. So, anything else on this topic?
Is it? Mike wants to speak on this issue.
Do public comment on this?
We're done with public comment tonight, Mike.
Well, yeah, it's up to the agenda though, so wasn't given the opportunity.
Not an action item, though.
It's not an action item. So if, it's up to the council.
I'll be happy to talk with you after the meeting, okay? I'm sure a lot of our council will, okay? Okay.
Is there a way we can get a timeline, maybe a study session set up for this? Or,
So this just, Chief Moody and I will sit down tomorrow morning and we will devise a plan of action along with the department owner of the property and our community development and see what we can do specifically for this instance. There are some constraints, not things that Kathleen was talking about, but as far as precedent, because as was mentioned, if this happens here, it's just going to move somewhere else in the city. So we want to be cognizant of that as well. But we will come up with a plan of action tomorrow. I will communicate with all the council tomorrow afternoon about what direction we're going to go.
thank you.